Hello, welcome to the A to Z YouTube channel. My name is Toby Allen and I'm in charge of all things recording at A to Z Studios. And today we're going to be looking at the brand new amp sim from Bogren Digital, and it's called MLC Subzero 100. It's very different to the previous offerings from Bogren Digital. This one has more than one knob, for one thing, and it's an officially licensed amp sim courtesy of Mark L Custom Guitar Amplifiers. Now you can consider this a sponsored video, as Bogren Digital were kind enough to give us this amp sim, and also we are affiliated, so if you do like this amp sim and you want to buy it, then please use the affiliate link below, which will actually give us a small bit of commission, but it won't cost you any extra. So all that bearing in mind, I only ever review stuff on the channel which I like, so if Bogren Digital sent this to me and I didn't like it, I wouldn't have reviewed it. Simple as that. So, spoiler alert, I do like this. Let's have a quick look at the interface itself. You've got various panels on here which take you to different pages of the amp sim. So you've got your pedals, you've got your amp head, you've got the cab, you have an EQ section, and you also have the time-based effects. So that would be your delay and your reverb. Now what's really cool straight off on this, as you can see, there's these little icon here. So if you turn these on, you can see these tiny little icons appear in the corner, and that tells you, even when you're on a different page, that those are enabled without having to go across and check. So that's really cool. That's one thing that's really stood out to me on the interface on this. The other thing is that even if you're not on the head page, if you're on the pedals or your cab or EQ or the time-based effects, you can still adjust the amp. Now that is really, really cool. The only other company I've seen that does that is ML Sound Lab. So that's really nice, because if you're here and you want to tweak the pedal, but you also want to tweak the amp, like a little bit more level here, a little bit less gain, you can do that without having to switch pages, which is really, really cool. I absolutely love that. So we'll go into the interface in a little bit of depth and then test some sounds and stuff as well. So the pedals here, you've got Vanilla Sky, which is an MLC pedal. And white, so that's your tone, and then you've got blue, gives you some low end, so you've basically got like a low end and a high end on there, so that's quite nice. Then you've also got the Fascination Street OVD, because it's red, and because I believe Maxon Red was on Rev C, I think that's what this is here. I think it's a Maxon drive. There's similar kind of controls to a tube screamer. Over on the head page, we have 3 channels. And what I really like on this is that you're only given controls on screen that you're actually using. So it's a 3-channel amp, and it has an individual EQ for each channel of the amp, but those are only visible when you are on that channel. And also, let's just say we crank the bass on that one and we go to channel 2. You'll see that these change, and then you go to channel 3 and again they change again. If you go back to channel 1, it's stayed where it was. So this basically EQ section, if you kind of imagine it as like it's a really wide amp and there's 3 bands of EQ, one for each channel, and there's switches and stuff underneath, that's what it looks like on the real one, but on this one you're only seeing what you're actually using. So on the clean channel, which default sounds like this, It's a clean channel. So let's drive the gain. Kind of plexi-ish. Etc, etc. You've got presence and depth, which of course is using the power amp stage with the feedback to adjust the low end and the high end. And you've got a switch here which allows you to change the circuit feedback to low or high. What that means is it actually affects that more. So if you crank the presence and then put it on low, compared to high, you get more of the high end of the presence coming through when you're on the high mode. I think that's how I understand it. Then you've got a low EQ switch here, which actually changes, it says there, it changes the focus point of the bass knob. Now I believe that what it means is it changes the frequency that the bass knob is boosting or cutting. And then you've got bright switch, which has 2 ons and 1 off. So you've got 2 different modes and you can have a switch off. So this is off. 2, 1. So you can hear the difference on that. It's kind of subtle, but it's there. And then you've also got the option to change out the power amp valves from 6L6 to EL34. Just going to crank that's going to be clipping, so let's turn the output down. So you can hear the 6L6 a little bit more scooped, a little more low end, and the EL34 is a bit more mid-focused. So kind of like British and American, essentially. That's pretty much it for the clean channel. On the middle channel, channel 2, I guess it's kind of a crunch channel, maybe, but the default setting. If we move the gain up, it's not a particularly high gain boy, but obviously if we put the pedal on and we go into a classic tube screamer positions, so yeah, that is the second channel. The difference as well, you've got here, you've still got the bright switch, you've still got the low and high on the feed, but over here you've got an M45 switch, which reduces the gain to emulate a British style circuit. So with it off, so I guess it makes it sound a bit more martially. And again, I mean, you've got the EL34 and 6L6. Being on the EL34 will make it sound more martially than being on the 6L6. Hang on, let's bring that drive back. So yeah, bass in. The middle knob is quite extreme, so that's good, because when you have amps where the EQ is kind of subtle, then you kind of pushed into a pigeonhole of what the amp can do. Whereas if you've got a really wide variety of range on there, then it gives you a lot more variety of sounds and tones you can get out of it, which is really cool. Also, I've just noticed, like, look how amazing that knob looks when you're turning it. It just, like the lighting on it, that looks incredible. They put a lot of effort and work into the interface on here, and it's the same thing with the amp knob series. I noticed that there was a lot of effort put into making it look amazing, look really, really cool. So then you've got channel 3, just turn that overdrive off. Kind of a lead channel, I guess, of the 3. It's still a lot lower gain than, say, like a 5150 or something like that. So if you're using it for metal, which if you're watching this channel you probably are, then then you're going to want a boost pedal on there. So that's essentially the head section. You've got quite a lot of options there, and it's a wide variety of tones. I'm just going to very quickly show you some presets I made to show you what kind of different variety of sounds you've got. You've got this one here, which is the Bloody Pineapple's main. Then you've got the Filth. Trying to get kind of an HM2 kind of sound out of it. Beef. And then Imminent Doom. Cool thing is with that preset is I noticed in the pedals, if you max the drive on the first pedal, going into the second pedal, max the drive, and then give it a fair bit of welly on the gain on that head, the way that it interacts, it kind of breaks up in a very, very natural, fuzzy kind of way, like it does if you get a real pair of pedals going into a drive channel of an amp. And that really impressed me, because I've not seen that happen in another amp sim in a musical and usable way. Normally, if you use multiple pedals going into the front of an amp in an amp sim, it just falls apart and sounds awful. But this falls apart in a musical, usable kind of way, and I really like that. So that's something that really impressed me. Drop C hardcore. I'm not in drop C, but then we've got Machine Against the Tom. Kind of JCME kind of sound. With a bit of reverb. And Snarly Boy. A lot of the snarl on that is coming from the cab, and I'll show you that in a second. Neck pickup shred. Can't shred. Kind of obvious. The D word. Etc. Again, I don't do gen, but you know, it's there. So if you're going to ask the question, will it chug? Yes, it will. So you've got a wide variety of tones. I mean, you know, there's still more stuff you can do, which I haven't really done in my presets. I just wanted to very quickly show you some different sounds I found. So the next thing we're going to look at is the cab. So you've got two speakers here, and you can choose from either a modern cab or a vintage cab, and then each of those has 5 microphone options. Once you've got the microphone chosen, you can move it around, and you can see over here that it's actually changing the distance as well as the position. Then you can also change the angle as well, and I quite like the fact that you can actually see the microphone turning, so it's very intuitive and very nice to use. Then you've got this IRDX thing, so it describes here impulse response dynamics amount, which adds natural speaker movement, compression and distortion. So there's more going on behind the scenes than just loading up an impulse response. An impulse response will kind of sound flat. It's like almost a capture of what the speaker is doing at a moment, but not necessarily what the speaker is doing as it's moving in and out. So this is what that's doing. It's kind of emulating that in and out movement and dynamics of using a real speaker. So I'll just do a couple of chugs and then turn it off and show you the difference. So with it off, it sounds like every other amp sim does, cabinet-wise. With it on, it does sound, there is something about it. It's hard for me to put my finger on it, but it sounds more like actually miking a cabinet in the room. So that is really nice. And the only other cab sim I've come across that really does that is Miko 2, again from ML Sound Lab. And then we've got an EQ section, pretty self-explanatory. It's just graphic EQ. You've got the frequencies up here, and then you've got your delay effect. So delay, you know. So if you're in the DAW, you can sync it to the BPM. If you're not, then you can sync it to your metronome down here. So we can stick in like 180, and then put it to 8th dotted, which is great. Default setting is what I would go for. And you got the option for ping pong. Nice bit of stereo effect on there, and then reverb. Change size of it. Mix. You can also low cut it. And you can see specifically what frequency it's low cutting at, which is really nice. Low cut on reverb is yeah, it's a given as far as I'm concerned. When I'm doing adding reverb tracks in the DAW, I will always have a low cut on them, because otherwise you get like the low mids and the bass just gets all sort of fluffy and woolly and muddy and rubbish. So that's essential. So what we're going to do now is going to have a quick look at the tones that I made for the demo that you saw at the start, and then Ruben's going to show us how he put those into the mix. Alright, so now we're in the DAW, and I've got the session loaded up from the demo video we had at the start. Got a session from the little playthrough video that we had at the start of the video. Got the session up here from the demo playthrough that we did at the beginning, and we've got the original guitars from the actual release song alongside the tones which we made with the new Bogren digital amp sim. So what basically is going on for the intro, well, pretty much the whole thing, is there's 6 guitars. We've got 2 main guitars, which is like the main tone across the entire album for consistency. Then we've got 2 beefy guitars, and we have 2 filthy guitars. So the main one, this is what it sounded like on the album. Hang on, let's play both together. Left and right. So left and right. And then what I've got with MLC is this. Which is different, but it's kind of in the kind of similar kind of vein. The actual guitars we did on there was a precision drive going into 5153, going into my Mode 4 cab. There was a 57 on a 2002 V30 and a pod mic on a 2002 Celestion Heritage. And then that was also blended with a Black Star with no pedals going into a 2x12, and it had 58 on a T75 and a 58 on a Creamback. So there was 4 microphones in total, 2 amps, 2 cabs. It's kind of beefy, and I obviously used Auto Align to get those all matched up and sounding nice together. I tried to recreate kind of in the kind of not identical, but in a similar kind of vein to what I had on the actual record. And then with the beefy, I honestly can't remember what I used, but I think it was probably plumes into Mode 4, and I think that might have been the T75 and Creamback as well. So that was the album tone. This is the MLC tone. It's a bit louder, so apologies for that. I didn't gain match that. It got that same kind of real girth low end thing going on. And then filth. This was, I think it was Behringer Fuzz going into Marshall valve state with a greenback. Nope, that's the TC Electronics iMaster going into the valve state. So kind of HM2 clone kind of sound. And then what I tried to do is kind of recreate that with MLC, and if I load that up here, you can see I showed before there's the 2 drives running together, then going into the amp on channel 3 with the gain maxed out. So it's just like absolute, and it sounds like this. And then the other thing I've got going on that one as well is I have a very aggressive EQ that's kind of boosting the HM2 frequencies after the amp, and the cab is SM7B and an RE20 on the vintage. So yeah, that was what I was going for on that demo, and you can hear from those, you know, it's the same sim on three sets of guitars. So very different sounding to each other, so it kind of shows you the kind of variety you can get out of the plugin. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hand over to Ruben, who's going to show us how he then put those into the mix.
Hey there, I'm Rubén Zafra, the Z in A to Z. I'm in charge of mixing and mastering, and in this video we wanted to do something a little bit different. Here we have the exported stems from the song Broken Spectre by Bloody Pineapples. We released it a couple days ago. We wanted to completely swap out the guitars from the real amps, that is this track right here, and then from the new Bogren digital plugin, the Subzero plugin, the MLC, so that you can understand and get the idea that you can basically use this plugin for a real release, because it sounds very good and you can really tell the difference if it's a real plugin or if it's a real amp or it's a plugin. And let's hear how it sounded before with the original tone. And now with the new tone from the plugin. As you can tell, they are completely different tones, but they have the intention of the original tone. It's also separated in the same pairs that we had in the original project. There's a main track, a beef track, and a filth track. They have its purpose on the global tone, and Toby tried to replicate it here with the plugin as well. Yeah, so I'm gonna show you what I did to the guitars. I didn't do much, just a little bit. This plugin, I'm really liking it a lot lately. It's from Waits Factory. It's called Spectre, and the song is called Broken Spectre. So yeah, it was perfect fit for this song. I didn't use it on the original, I think, but yeah. So basically what I'm doing right here, let me show you before and after. Before it sounds awesome, but I tweaked it to fit the mix a bit. Sorry, this was with the plugins on, this is without. Basically it's the same tone, but this is a bit, with the processing on, it's a bit cleaned up a bit in the low end and the high end, also boosting a bit of high end because it was a bit dull. Also removing some harshness with my favorite plugin Soothe. Compressing it a bit, just a couple dB, just to get the aggression in some of the attack of the guitar. And then yeah, this is just a cleaning a bit more. There was some resonant frequencies that Soothe didn't pick up that much, but I really like to do some of them manually, especially these two, one around this area always, and the other one half of the frequency. Let me show you before and after of each plugin. This was just to make it cut a bit more in the mix. I really like what the tone is already, but it needed more high end to cut through the mix. And I'm using the tube on this band right here in the lower one, because it looks like it has a bit more mid-range character, and then the tape on the high end, because in the high end it usually gets a bit more fizzy or harsh, so using the tape circuit here helps a bit with that. Then you Soothe. Usual setting, just trimming a bit of the between 2 and 4K, 5K. Again, the compression. It gives a bit of character as well as this some attack. And then cleaning up a bit. has an awesome low end, this plugin, but I had to get rid of a bit of it because stacking multiple tones made it a bit boomy in the low end. So yeah, this is the main track. Let's see the beef track. It's very beefy, as you can tell. This I did even less. I just cleaned up a bit more because this one was a lot more bassy, so I had to remove a bit boxy on the mid-range, and then boosting a bit of the high mids just to make it cut a bit through more, and then removing some harshness. So that it could blend a bit more with the main track. This L1 is just to catch a little bit of the peaks, but just to have it under control. Then the field track. This has a mid-range character that I like. This was basically a bit of the same, removing a bit of the low end, high end, and then boosting a little bit more of that mid-range to make it blend more with the original tone. Again, so just catching some picks. Yeah, so in general, this is what they sound like. In the bass, what I did was a bit more smooth, but this one doing very little, because I found that stacking multiple amps, sometimes it can lead to having a bit more harshness. See, I'm doing basically nothing. Then a bit more filtering, because when stacking multiple amp tones, it can get a bit messy in the low end, so I just get rid of a bit more of that low end. And as well on the high end, above 12K, boosting more of the high end, because this was a later move in the mix. I noticed that it didn't cut that much, so I just did it, and then this is just a resonant peak that I found again. So ugly. Then moving on, this is the Pro MB, just to catch some of that palm mute so it doesn't blow up the speakers. Well, as this is a very low tune guitar, it also helps a bit with the bass, even though it's not palm muting, it's also very bassy. And then a trick I picked from Buster, just putting this between, I don't know, 450 and 2K or something, and then boosting just this band. These other bands are like not disabled, but without any distortion, and then just raising the distortion until it fits. This gives a lot of mid-range character. This was just to do it a bit more like the original tone, that it was a bit more mid-focused, and yeah, but it sounds great as well without it. I would totally be happy with that without this one. So yeah, let me show you again the before and after of the processing, and also the comparison between the original tone and this one. Sounding great, but again a bit dull, a bit not that bright, so it needed a lot of brightness. And then again with all the processing on. Now the original tone. So yeah, this is it. If you need or want something more from us, just tell us and I will do another video. Peace out.
So thank you very much for watching. If you like what you've seen, then like and subscribe, please. If you want to check out the plugin, hit the link below. And as I said before, we are affiliates, so there's a little bit of a kickback for us. Doesn't cost you any extra, but helps out the channel. So if you love us, then that'd be great. Thank you. If you want to check out any of the other amp sims which we tried out on the channel, then there will be a button appear somewhere, which will give you a playlist to all of our guitar gear review videos. So thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.